My parents were Holocaust survivors, and as a result, I developed a strong interest in Holocaust education and awareness. This fits in well with the memoir, which I recently completed and hope to be releasing in the near future. My plan is to periodically post talks on topics related to World War II and the Holocaust. This is the first in that series where I will talk about how Adolf Hitler came to power. People have been more focused on this process as fascism seems to have gained popularity globally. The conditions that can lead to a fascist government include such things as a lack of experience or history with democracy, an unstable or weak democracy, an unstable or faltering economy, and high unemployment. All of these things existed in Germany between World War I and World War II. Entering World War I, Germany was a constitutional monarchy. It came as a shock to the German people when they realized they had lost the war when it came to an end in November 1918. That shock intensified the following year when Germany was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty made Germany accept responsibility for the war. In doing so, Germany was required to make massive reparation payments. Also, according to the treaty, the German army was limited to 100,000 troops. Finally, Germany was forced to transfer territory to its neighbors. In Europe, Germany ceded territory to 7 countries in total, including Czechoslovakia, Lithuania, and Poland, none of which even existed as independent states before the First World War. The treaty also forced Germany to surrender colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. Germany's constitutional monarchy was replaced by a parliamentary democracy called the Weimar Republic, which lasted just 15 years. The early 1920s in Germany was a time of social, economic, and political unrest. The war and reparation payments led to hyperinflation and the devaluation of the currency. Excuse me. Germany had no experience with democracy, and the conditions at the time almost guaranteed its failure. From the beginning of the Weimar Republic, there were numerous political movements eager to overthrow the new government. The Nazis were the group that just ultimately succeeded. Excuse me. The groups ranged from the communists on the far left to various fascist groups on the right. Discussion and debate groups like the Society for the Study of Fascism in Berlin popped up to explore such things as the type of fascism practiced by an Italian dictator, Benito Mussolini. It was in this environment that in 1919, Adolf Hitler joined the German Labor Party, which was a small group of nationalists and anti-Semites that seemed to fit in well with his worldviews. The small number of party members were quickly won over by Hitler's political beliefs. In an attempt to make the party more broadly appealing to larger segments of the population, he convinced them to rename itself the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party, and then in 1921, he took over leadership. Hitler and the Nazi leadership rejected political participation in Weimar elections and were in favor of overthrowing the central government in Berlin. The Nazis pursued the establishment of an authoritarian, nationalist central government, in other words, a dictatorship. His first move took place on November 9th, 1923. Hitler and other Nazi leaders and about 2,000 followers marched towards the headquarters of the commander of troops stationed in Bavaria. It was their hope that other right-wing groups and sympathetic military personnel would join them, but that failed to occur. As a result, police easily ended the attempted coup, which became known as the Beer Hall Push. After the failed push, German authorities banned the Nazi Party and arrested its ringleaders, including Hitler. He only spent 9 months in prison because the justice system at the time was somewhat sympathetic to his cause. During this time, he began working on his autobiography, as everyone knows, called Mein Kampf. His explicitly race-based nationalist, social Darwinist, and anti-Semitic vision of human history. These racist theories is how Nazism stood out and went well beyond other forms of fascism. After his release, Hitler convinced Bavarian officials to lift the ban on his party. Hitler and the Nazis decided to change tactics after the failed coup attempt. Beginning in the mid-1920s, they focused their efforts on winning elections. But the Nazi Party did not immediately succeed in attracting voters. In the 1928 elections, the Nazi Party won less than 3% of the national vote. Economic conditions and employment were in poor shape throughout the 1920s in Germany. And that was before the Great Depression hit, and it hit Germany hard. Millions of Germans lost their jobs. Unemployment, hunger, poverty, and homelessness became serious problems in Germany in the early 1930s. A weak and polarized German government failed to solve any of these problems. Passing legislation was almost impossible because of disagreements in the German parliament. Many Germans lost faith in their leaders' ability to govern. I suspect for many people, this scenario is far too familiar. Failed governments led to frequent elections. Between 1919 and 1932, there were 8 German elections, and each one resulted in a short-lived coalition. Beginning in 1930, the Nazi Party started winning more votes. In the Reichstag election in September 1930, the Nazis won 18% of the vote, which was quite a jump from less than 3% 2 years earlier. This shocked some Germans, especially those who recognized the Nazis were an extreme fringe political movement. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis won followers by promising to create a strong Germany. The Nazis promised to fix the economy, put people back to work, return Germany to the status of a great European power, regain territory lost in World War I, create a strong authoritarian German government, and unite all Germans along racial and ethnic lines. This sort of sounds like make Germany great again. The Nazis played on people's hopes, fears, and prejudices. They also offered scapegoats. They falsely claimed that Jews and communists were to blame for Germany's problems, including losing World War I. This was all part of the Nazis' anti-Semitic and racist ideology. In the June 1932 elections, the Nazis just about doubled their votes and won 37%. This was more votes than any other party in the Reichstag. In November 1932, just several months later, there was actually another election, but the Nazi share fell to 33%. However, they were still the largest party in the Reichstag. The Nazis' electoral success made it impossible to govern Germany without their involvement. Hitler and the Nazis refused to work with other political parties unless Hitler was appointed chancellor, something that nobody really wanted. German President Paul von Hindenburg initially resisted this demand, However, he gave in and appointed Hitler as Chancellor of Germany on January 30th, 1933. His appointment was actually the result of a backroom political deal. Some conservative politicians convinced Hindenburg to take advantage of the Nazis' popularity. They mistakenly believed that they could control Hitler. So Germany's democratic constitution was still in effect when Hitler was appointed chancellor. However, he was able to make use of existing laws to destroy German democracy and create a dictatorship. He made his first move just 4 weeks later, on February 27th, when the Reichstag building was destroyed by a fire. Hitler claimed the fire was an intentional act by the communists and used the incident to assume extraordinary powers. Hitler convinces Hindenburg to declare a state of emergency and suspend personal freedoms. A sham election was held a week later on March 5th. Despite the state of emergency and the extraordinary powers, the Nazis failed to win a governing majority in the Reichstag elections. They only won 45% of the vote. And what Hitler did was introduce a bill that would give his government legislative authority. The Nazis, the conservatives, and the Catholic Center Party supported this so-called Enabling Act, which granted Hitler's government the power to decree law without a vote in parliament for a 4-year period. Communists and socialist opponents were arrested before the vote, and as a result, the bill easily passed, and that was the end of the Weimar Republic. Hitler began a conservative policy of synchronization, forcing organizations, political parties, and state governments into line with Nazi goals and placing them under Nazi leadership. Culture, the economy, education, and the law came under greater Nazi control. Trade unions were abolished, and workers, employees, and employers were forced into Nazi organizations. By mid-July 1933, the Nazi Party was the only political party permitted in Germany. The Reichstag essentially was a rubber stamp for Hitler's dictatorship. The next step was a purge of the Nazi stormtroopers, or the SA, as well as other opponents of Hitler's regime. This purge came to be known as the Night of Long Knives. More than 80 SA leaders were arrested and shot without trial. Hitler claimed that the purge was necessary to respond to a plot by the SA to overthrow the government. In reality, the SA leadership had sought to take the place of the German army. The purge won Hitler the support of the army hierarchy. Then in 1934, President Hindenburg dies. Hitler assumes the power of the presidency. The army swears an oath of personal loyalty to Hitler. And in essence, Hitler's dictatorship is finalized. He's now Reich President, head of state, Reich Chancellor, head of government, and the Führer, leader of the Nazi Party. And that really is the process in which Hitler took control of Germany. I hope you found this talk useful, interesting, and I hope you join in and follow some of the future ones. Thank you.